Hello guys and welcome as always to Let's Talk About It. On today's video we're going to be talking about some unsolved mysteries, both real and supernatural, that have taken place within triangular geographical areas. One such area is the Bridgewater Triangle, which is located within southeastern Massachusetts. The 200 square mile area is said to be a hotspot for all and every type of phenomenon, including UFO sightings, vengeful ghosts, and stories from Native American lore, with one such story laying claim to being the origin of all of the mysterious happenings that go on within the Bridgewater Triangle, because it's said that everything began in 1675 during a period known as King Philip's War. This war took place in New England between English colonists and the Wampanoag tribe, who were led by Chief Metacom, aka King Philip. Before the end of King Philip's War, Chief Metacom was involved in a bloody conflict that saw him slain in a swamp. As the man lay dying, he is said to have put a dark curse on the area that became known as the Bridgewater Triangle, a curse that is said to still be present to this day and is either responsible for attracting the strange and mysterious or for creating it. For example, in 1760 there were reports of a strange noise echoing from the sky over New England. This was then accompanied by a large glowing shape in the sky that was said to be so bright it could be seen from Roxbury to Bridgewater, which is an approximately 20-mile distance. The reported incident terrified the locals and is thought to be the very first UFO sighting from within the Bridgewater Triangle, but it is by no means the last, because another example of UFO sightings took place on July 3rd, 1972, when the local naval base of the South Shore area of Massachusetts received several calls of a large object floating in the sky. This unidentified object was said to be similar in shape to a baseball diamond, translucent and glowing, and was visible between the hours of 7 PM and 8 PM, at which point it abruptly disappeared. With the naval base unable to provide any kind of explanation, the 26 witnesses agreed, as you would imagine, that what they saw was a UFO. But whether or not alien life had come down to abduct somebody, or they simply come to observe the effects of King Philip's curse, is anyone's guess. Now, from eerie encounters in the sky to eerie encounters on the ground, we have the story of the red-headed hitchhiker. This is said to be the ghost of a man with a shock of red hair and a ghostly contorted face who stalks Route 44 waiting for a lift. When the man is picked up by an unknowing driver, he will sit in their car in complete silence, only responding to questions by pointing in the direction he wants to go. After a while, the silent man will start to giggle. This giggle will get louder until eventually the man starts to laugh maniacally, terrifying both the driver and any passengers within the car. As the hitchhiker's laughter reaches its crescendo, he will suddenly vanish. However, his presence will remain, because the car radio will start to crackle, and through the static of noise, the red-headed hitchhiker's laughter will return, but at this point he will begin to taunt the passengers of the car by name. Some believe him to be the ghost of a man killed on the road who is looking for revenge for his death. Others believe him to be a man who lived and died on the land before it became a road, who wants trespassing motorists to leave. And finally, from within the Bridgewater Triangle, we have the very real and very terrifying results of both animal and human mutilation that is said to be the work of a roaming satanic cult. Evidence of the supposed cult's ritualistic killings began in the 1990s, when the bodies of dead cows would show up, having been mutilated in what seemed to be a sacrificial manner. As much as this worried local people and the authorities investigated the crimes as best they could, no one person or cult, for that matter, was ever caught, and eventually the dead cows stopped turning up. However, in 2014, the cult rumours started up again, because in this year, the bodies of two women were found near the border of Brockton and Abington, The unfortunate victims had been mutilated and had several body parts cut off. The cadavers had then been stacked up in what appeared to be part of some kind of ritualistic satanic activity. As with the killing of the cows, no person or persons were ever apprehended, but both crimes are thought to be the result of the same satanic cult. The next mysterious place to talk about is the Bermuda Triangle, an area covering southwest Vermont in which many strange things have occurred. The most infamous example, however, is that of a number of disappearances that occurred between 1945 and 1950 on or near a place called Glastonbury Mountain. These include a 75-year-old, highly experienced mountain guide called Middy Rivers, who disappeared whilst leading a hiking group. The 1946 disappearance of 18-year-old Paula Weldon, who was last seen on Glastonbury Mountain wearing a bright red coat. This coat should have made Paula very easy for a search party to spot. However, neither she or the coat itself were ever seen again. And then we have the October 12, 1950 disappearance of an 8-year-old boy called Paul Jepson, who had been left alone in a truck whilst his mother tended to livestock close by. But when she returned to the truck, the young boy was gone. Paul was said to be obsessed with Glastonbury Mountain, and it is believed by his father that his son had wandered off, never to be seen again. Rumours of what happened to these people are rife, but one explanation is that of the dreaded Bennington monster, with theories of his existence coming from Native Americans who claim that on Glastonbury Mountain there is an enchanted boulder. With that in mind, it is thought that the Bennington monster is actually one of the boulders, if not all of them, that make up the cairns that can be found at the peak of Glastonbury Mountain. The story goes that when stood on, this enchanted boulder turns from a solid to something far more fluid, at which point it swallows its victim whole, leaving no trace of them behind. However, this theory doesn't really apply to the disappearance of a man named James Tefford, who, in 1949, disappeared whilst travelling on a bus from St Albans to Bennington. At the final stop, James's belongings were found in his seat. However, he was nowhere to be seen, and there was no evidence of him having exited the bus at any other location, leading people to believe that James had either been abducted by aliens or had passed through a wormhole which, for whatever reason, had only affected him. But the final disappearance from this time frame seems to have a far more real-world explanation, because on October 28, 1950, a woman named Frida Lander became separated from her cousin whilst on a hiking trip. Unlike the other 4 missing people, Frida's body was eventually found. But when it was so decomposed, no cause of death could be confirmed. What confused authorities, however, was that Frida's body was found in a field that had previously been thoroughly searched, leading them to believe that her body had been moved from one location to the field by the person that killed her, a person that has never been apprehended. And of course, no list of strange shapes would be complete if we didn't talk about the infamous Bermuda Triangle. This is an approximately 500,000 mile area of the Atlantic Ocean between Bermuda, Florida and Puerto Rico, within which many unsolved mysteries and strange events have occurred. And these occurrences go as far back as the 15th century, when Christopher Columbus reported seeing many strange things, such as the stars moving around in the night sky, making it almost impossible to navigate. A light flickering on the horizon, very similar to that of a candle, that would move up and down, causing confusion. And most shockingly of all, and perhaps with the least likely explanation, he reported seeing a glowing object emerge from the sea, at which point it flew off towards the sky. And then, if we fast forward to more modern times, there are many stories of ships and planes having disappeared within the Bermuda Triangle. For example, on December 5th, 1945, 5 Avenger torpedo bombers, known collectively as Flight 19, took off from a base in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, to perform a practice bombing run, something they had done many times before. However, at some point into the run, the flight leader, Lieutenant Charles C. Taylor, believed that his team were travelling in the wrong direction. This was due to a bad storm and his belief that his navigation device was malfunctioning. Despite seeking guidance, Taylor went against the advice given to him of flying towards the setting sun to get his team home. And seemingly, he ended up flying his team, Flight 19, further out to sea. It was then, during his final transmission, that Lieutenant Charles C. Taylor told Flight 19 they would have to ditch their aircraft due to lack of fuel for a better chance of rescue. 2 Marina flying jets were immediately sent to search for the missing pilots. However, one of these planes also disappeared. And to this day, none of the planes, the crewmen, or any signs of a wreckage have ever been found. And finally, we have the story of the Great Isaac Lighthouse, which is the setting for the mysterious disappearance of 2 experienced lighthouse keepers, Ivan Major and B. Mollings. It was on August 4th, 1969, after several failed communication attempts, that a small boat was sent to the Great Isaac Lighthouse to check on the keepers. Upon arriving on the island, the welfare party very quickly discovered that there was no signs of either Ivan Majors or B. Mollings. It was noted that a hurricane had recently passed over the island, but no damage had been made to any of the living quarters, raising questions as to why 2 highly experienced lighthouse keepers wouldn't have just stayed in the one place they would have been safest. The most likely explanation for their disappearance is that they were caught off guard by a freak wave, which swept them out to sea to their watery graves. But in keeping with the strange mysteries of the Bermuda Triangle, it is widely believed that the 2 men met their fates at the hands of the paranormal, because the Great Isaac Lighthouse, which can be found in Bimini in the Bahamas, is said to be haunted. These include the spirit of a young boy who was on a cargo ship headed to the island during the construction of the Great Isaac Lighthouse. This ship was involved in a wreckage which saw it sunk, and the young boy was eaten alive by sharks. And it is believed that the young boy now haunts the island, exploring it as he waits for a ship to take him home. And then there is the story of the Grey Lady, who walks the shallow waters, wailing with emotion. It is believed that she is the spirit of a woman who died in another shipwreck, and she is searching for her infant child who, unbeknownst to her, survived the accident. Some believe that the lady in grey and the young boy are mother and son, with neither of them knowing that their loved ones died or that they themselves are dead, meaning that both of them will be waiting for an eternity for the other. Well guys, that brings me to the end of another video. If you got something out of it, please hit that like button. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. Otherwise, leave your comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.